All right, folks, it's time now for... This one's pretty easy, but also pretty important. It could decide the race in Ohio and the race for president. If Mitt Romney loses Ohio and the election, one key reason is the popularity of the president's auto bailout in the Buckeye State and also in Michigan and Wisconsin. In a late attempt to neutralize the power of the bailout, Romney has actually been running this radio ad.
Barack Obama says he saved the auto industry. But for who? Ohio or China? Well, under President Obama, GM cut 15,000 American jobs. But they're planning to double the number of cars built in China, which means 15,000 more jobs for China. And now comes word that Chrysler plans to start making Jeeps in, you guessed it, China.
And this TV ad.
Obama took GM and Chrysler into bankruptcy and sold Chrysler to Italians who are going to build Jeeps in China.
If people in these swing states believe this, it could cause the president to lose Ohio and the election. So how's it going over? The fact checker in the Washington Post gave this whopper their worst rating, 4 Pinocchios. The Pulitzer Prize-winning PoliticalFact.com gave it their worst award, Pants on Fire. But the most stinging denials came from the car companies themselves, as reported on the front page of the Detroit Free Press. GM and Chrysler, Romney is wrong. GM called it, quote, campaign tack politics at its cynical worst. Chrysler said, quote, Jeep production will not be moved from the United States to China. So Mitt Romney, man, I'm getting tired of giving you this award. You brought this week's... Guys, I get the dance he wants to play. But my goodness, when you get slapped by Chrysler and Jeep for saying this is a flat-out lie, who is he fooling?
Gentlemen, I am from Dayton, Ohio, born and reared. Worked in an automotive plant, fired inland. I also lived in Detroit for almost 20 years. My children, 2 of my children were born there. I got married there. Let me tell you something. This did more to help President Obama in the state of Ohio than anything he could have actually done. I know how he's going to try to spend it. Oh, yeah, they're going to build Jeeps in China. Yeah, the Chinese are going to build Jeeps for Chinese. But the one quote you don't have that you can't put on the air is from the vice president of Chrysler, who told Donald Trump, you are full of it. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave out the first two letters. As Brother
Giles, well, of course, he designed the Chrysler 300.
And let me tell you, do you know what it takes to get, and I worked for General Motors, for a division of General Motors, do you know what it gets to get, to have a chairman to get involved in this type of thing, and then to have a vice president who goes on record with his name? They are ticked.
And this is especially astounding coming from Mitt Romney. He's supposed to be this business sophisticate.
And Daddy ran a car company.
You know, exactly. And he's trying to sell this idea that somehow creating jobs in China is stealing jobs in the United States. I mean, it seems like his narrative ought to be like, this is good. I mean, this is a U.S. company that's, you know, tapping the global market and spreading. Give President Obama the credit where it's due, and it feels like it helps him.
But I think what we'll remember about this campaign, if President Obama wins re-election, is that if anything happened, the Romney campaign and Republicans perhaps in general did too much political overreach. Rather than going with the numbers that are there, we were talking about the unemployment numbers. Well, you know what? 40% of those people in those unemployment numbers haven't had a job in over 27 months. That's fertile ground to go after politically. But instead, you see ads like this. And so when they get caught in these type of scenarios, it's political overreach. There's a backlash. And when you're doing this stuff this close to the election, there's not enough time to bounce back. If we think about any of the narrative in 2012, it may end up being that Romney and Republicans did a little bit of overreach to go get President Obama. Some of it could be based on some racism, and some of it's just based on that angst to try to get control of that White House.
Now, overreach is a way of saying they lied. Well, this ad is a flat-out lie.
It is, but let me also go back to the overreach part. I'll tell you elsewhere they overreached. They overreached in this voter suppression, this voter intimidation, like in Iowa, where they sat up there and trained poll watchers to tell people in Iowa that you need an ID to vote when it's not true. And then they get busted and take it off their website. They've got 37,000 people that are supposed to be getting in folks' face. You know, and let me tell you, Wisconsin, same thing. You can't vote if you're a convicted felon, when in fact you can in the state of Wisconsin if you've cleared. At one point, we thought we would be asleep as African Americans, there were issues that they could have played on, the economy, the lack of black voting.
Because look, the black unemployment rate went up 14.3%.
Thank you. But when you tell us as a people we can't have something, or you're going to suppress us, or you're going to keep something from us, you just awaken a sleeping giant, and they did more to help these long lines at early voting than any other.
And I'll tell you,
person.
Chris, I'm telling you, I've been retweeting folks. I got tweets from folks who said they were standing in line early voting 7 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. I mean, all across. In fact,
and that's not all because of Obama.
Right.
That's not because it's overreach. And I just hope in the next cycle they have two smart young men like you in the Republican Party that they'll listen to, because clearly y'all didn't get listened to this time around.
Chris.
Well, I think Lenny's right here. Look, there's plenty to run against the president on. There's plenty to disagree with the president on. The fundamental problem here is Mitt Romney needed to have decided what that was and articulated it. His message is, vote for me because I'm better than the other guy. That ain't going to do it. So in this particular case, what you do is you squander this entire opportunity. Go after the black folks and say, this is how I'm going to do better. Go after all the unemployed folks and say, this is how I'm going to do better. That's not what we saw.
All right, Pam, I want you to hold tight. I got one more segment with you. And in the next segment, I want you to think about this during the break. Who is going to win the presidency? You're going to have to make a choice, all right? So there's no punking out, and it will not be Gary Johnson, Libertarian, okay? Gotcha? So hold tight.